The world always tells you that childhood is a time of innocence, a time of joy and carefree. Days spent in the sun, but what happens when that sun never rises again? What happens when a playground stops being a place of laughter and becomes a stage for something darker, something cruel and unforgiving in playground? Aron Beauregard tears the safety net right out from under your feet. This is not the story you expected, and once you begin, you will not be able to look away. It begins with a funeral. A small one, a quiet affair for a boy named Jacob, the youngest son of the Willows family. His death is sudden, shocking, ruled an accident. But grief has a way of stirring doubt, especially for his older brother Christopher, who is only 11 years old. Christopher is torn apart not just by loss, but by the strange silence surrounding it. No one seems to want to talk about how Jacob really died, and every time he asks questions he gets half-truths and awkward glances. He can't explain it, but something inside him whispers that the answers lie in the old playground at the end of the street, the same one where Jacob was last seen alive. Christopher isn't alone in his gut feeling. The kids in the neighborhood, they avoid the playground now. They talk in hushed tones. They say it's cursed. They say something terrible happened there, and it isn't just what happened to Jacob, it's what's been happening for years. Buried stories layered in pain, cruelty, and secrets. The kind of stories that grown-ups pretend never existed, but the playground remembers. It stands like a monument to the worst parts of childhood. The kind you can never really forget. As Christopher starts to dig, he uncovers a decades-long tradition of torment, a sick game invented by the cruelest of kids who called themselves the lords of the playground. They were not just bullies, they were tyrants. They ruled the playground with fear and twisted rules, forcing other children to participate in vicious rituals, hazing punishments, and worse. This wasn't imagination. This wasn't just child's play, it was real, and it left scars. Not just on bodies, but on minds and souls. Each step Christopher takes toward the truth uncovers another layer of darkness. He finds a notebook buried under a loose wooden plank under the merry-go-round, a crude journal written by one of the original lords, pages filled with childish scrawls of violence, boasting of the things they did to other kids, one story after another of humiliation, torture, and control. And it all sounds so much like what happened to Jacob, too much like it to be coincidence, but the adults won't hear any of it. Christopher tries to tell his parents, but they're drowning in their own grief, pretending everything is fine, hoping, if they ignore it long enough, the pain will go away. The teachers at school won't listen either. Some of them even seem to know more than they admit, but they won't talk. Not about that playground. It's like the whole town made an unspoken agreement to forget what happened. There Christopher realizes, if he wants answers, he'll have to get them himself. He teams up with two friends, Owen and Riley, who have also felt the sting of the playgrounds curse. Riley's older brother was one of the lords back in the day. He used to come home with bruises and a strange, haunted look in his eyes, until the day he hanged himself in their garage, and no one ever talked about why Owen was attacked by bullies near the jungle gym when he was 7. His arm was broken, but the kids who did it never got punished. It was just one of those things that happened growing up, or so the adults said. Together, the three boys begin to dig deeper. They start collecting stories, old newspaper clippings, notes and whispers from older kids who have long since moved on from the neighborhood. But it's not just old paper that's coming to life. Strange things begin to happen as they investigate. One of their classmates disappears after being seen near the playground. Another boy is found injured, badly, saying he was pushed by someone with no face. Christopher starts having nightmares, vivid, disturbing ones, where he's running through the playground, chased by shadows and laughter that doesn't belong to any child. He knows the more they uncover, the more real the darkness becomes. The lords of the playground might be gone in name, but something remains, something hungry, and it wants new players. The rules haven't changed, and the game is still being played. Christopher finds himself pulled into a sick reenactment of the Lord's rituals, each challenge more dangerous, more personal, forcing him to face his fears and his guilt and the parts of himself he never wanted to see. At the heart of it all is a single question: what really happened to Jacob, and why was it covered up? The answer lies in the final pages of the notebook, where the original Lord wrote of a secret trial, the ultimate punishment for disobedience. A punishment that involved Jacob, a punishment no one ever came back from. But this time, Christopher is determined to break the cycle. He's not just playing the game, he's rewriting the rules. As Christopher confronts the remaining piece of the puzzle, he comes face to face with the last lord, a boy now grown a man, haunted by what he did and what he couldn't stop. It turns out, he was there the night Jacob died, and he tried to intervene, but it was too late. The other kids didn't listen. They went too far, and Jacob's accident wasn't an accident at all. It was the final act of a long legacy of cruelty, and the grown man who once called himself a lord has lived with the guilt ever since. But guilt is not enough. Christopher wants justice. He wants to burn the notebook. He wants to destroy the playground, and he wants to make sure no child ever suffers. There again, with the help of his friends and the broken man who once led the horrors, they tear down the structures one by one, setting fire to the past in a way that cannot be ignored. In the end, the truth is out, but it doesn't come without cost. Not everyone makes it through the final game. Scars both visible and hidden remain, but Christopher is no longer just a boy who lost his brother. He is something more, a survivor, a protector, a keeper of truth, and even as he moves away from the neighborhood with his family, The Memory of the Playground follows him like a shadow. Playground by Aron Beauregard is not a story for the faint of heart. It's brutal, unflinching, and deeply disturbing, but it's also real in a way that horror rarely is. It looks childhood in the eye and asks what happens when we ignore the darkness hiding behind smiles and sandboxes. It forces us to remember that evil isn't always a stranger. Sometimes it's another kid in the same classroom. Sometimes it's in the games we play. Sometimes it's in the places we're told are safest. Book is not just horror, it's a reckoning, a confrontation with the worst parts of growing up and what happens when cruelty is allowed to thrive without consequence. Beauregard doesn't pull punches, he dives headfirst into the abyss and drags the reader with him page by page, revelation by revelation, and what he uncovers is unforgettable. The writing is sharp, visceral, and relentless. Beauregard has a way of painting scenes that are so vivid you can smell the rusted metal of the swing set here, the squeak of the merry-go-round feel, the chill of being watched by something you can't quite name. The pacing never lets up, and each chapter builds tension like a noose pulling tighter and tighter until the final moment of release. But perhaps the most haunting part of Playground is not the supernatural elements or the gore, it's the way it captures how cruelty becomes tradition, how fear becomes silence, and how kids learn to wear masks that adults never see. It's a reminder that trauma doesn't disappear with age. It lingers, it festers, and sometimes it waits for just the right moment to come back to life. For anyone who dares to listen, this audiobook is an unforgettable descent into the haunted recesses of childhood, a journey through the broken bones and twisted minds of those who were supposed to be innocent but learned too young how to survive in a world that wasn't kind. Playground isn't just a book, it's a scream, a warning, a challenge. Are you ready to hear what the Playground has to say? Link in description.